Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. For me, it is a good morning. Today, we're going to look at Catalyst Center and really take a look at like a real life example or a use case for turning up branch sites or maybe doing like a switch refresh. So let me share my screen. We'll jump right into it and I'll kind of go through the topology and what we're going to take a look at specifically. So what we're looking at here is an EVE-NG topology where we have a Cisco themed network. And what we're looking at the top here is Research Triangle Park, or RTP, which is going to be hosting a virtual instance of Catalyst Center. It is connected through the WAN to some branch locations. If we look at the left, we can see SJC, that's going to represent San Jose, California. Over to the right, we've got New York City, and then down the bottom, we have a London office. London is going to just be, we're really going to focus more between San Jose and New York City just from a resource perspective. My lab's kind of being taxed with the resources. So again, we're just kind of simulating a basic branch environment. And the idea is that we are going to spin up these Catalyst 9 kV switches that there's one in each location. We're going to write erase them and we're going to turn them on from scratch. We're going to leverage plug and play through Catalyst Center so that this device automatically gets picked up and discovered by Catalyst Center. We'll then rely on some CLI templates that are attached to network profiles, which will allow us to define some variables and essentially get this site online from a complete remote perspective and have full connectivity between this virtual PC emulator that I've got here over to New York City and out to the internet, or well, vice versa. So let's go ahead and I'm going to start by right erasing the switches and rebooting them because that's going to take a few minutes. And while they're rebooting, we'll take a look at some of the components on the Catalyst Center side so that we can make the best use of our time here. So let me go ahead and right erase the San Jose switch. And we will go ahead and reload. Same thing with New York City. All right, so both of those are going to restart. So while they're restarting, let's hop over to Catalyst Center and take a look at some of the components here. So if we go to the network hierarchy, I've already got the sites kind of laid out and defined, right? So we've got, the UK's here, United States. If we expand the US, we can see they're kind of grouped into states. And then from there, we've got the buildings. And then from within the buildings, we have the floors. So nothing fancy there. If we go over to, I want to start with plug and play because I want to add these switches from scratch so you can see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and delete them. Okay, so we have no devices in plug and play. Now we know that it's important to have the serial number of the device that we're trying to onboard inside of plug and play. So I made note of those serial numbers in a little text file here. So I have the 3 serial numbers of the devices we're playing with. Again, we're going to just exclude London for the moment. We're going to focus more on San Jose and New York City. So let's go ahead and add San Jose. And I'm playing with the Catalyst 9 kVs, specifically this one. So I'm going to select that. And then we'll go ahead and give it a name. And that was San Jose, right? Yes, it was. Okay. So we'll add that. And then let's add the New York City serial number. And likewise, we'll give it a name. Okay, perfect. So now those two entries are in plug and play. So it's, once the switch comes online, it gets an IP address from DHCP. It has option 43, which points to Catalyst Center, and Catalyst Center should pick it up. Again, those switches are rebooting, so we should hopefully see some action there at some point. But in the meantime, let's go through the other pieces. So if we come back to Catalyst Center, what I did was under design, we need to essentially define a CLI template first and foremost. So if we look here, the second one, I like to call them custom, so that way they all show up together and I know that I created them. So the one that I created here is custom standard Cisco branch. And the idea behind this one is that it's going to be reused across many different switches. All right. So if you have a cookie cutter type WAN where, the only thing changing is the IP schema or the VLAN, really just the VLAN SVI, the IP address schema, right? That's the only thing really changing. Then you can reuse your templates, right? And then you're just going to distinguish the ports on which VLAN that they need, right? So let's look at the template. So you can see here, I got, I think it's like 5 or 6 variables. So we're going to go ahead and make the host name a variable, so that way whoever's turning this site up is going to define the host name when the site comes online. Here, all we're doing is some basic SSH v2 connectivity as well as SNMP. That's it, right? So that's just so Catalyst Center can manage the device moving forward. The VLANs are going to stay the same, the VLAN numbers, that is. So what I'm doing is defining 100, 200, 300. We can see that they have a different purpose. So VLAN 100 will be for like management devices, 200 will be for your users, and 300 will be for like any voice that you might have, phones, whatever. VLAN 999 is going to be for the underlay, what I'm calling the underlay. It's just basic connectivity, layer 3 connectivity between the various devices within the site. And that will allow us to establish like OSPF adjacencies, that type of thing. For the VLAN SVIs, we're going to go ahead and we're going to narrate what that IP address should be when we bring the site online. Again, so this can be reused across many different sites. And what we're going to do is just plug in the default gateway, or in this case, it's the underlay. But in 100, 200, and 300, it would be the default gateway for that VLAN, right? We can see that we have basic OSPF area 0 turned on for each of those SVIs. And we can also see that the helper address is in there, so that when we do the demonstration and I bring that virtual PC emulator online, it's going to grab an IP address from a pool based off this helper. And that way you can see how hands-off and automatic this can be. So for the then we have a default route, which just has an AD of 250. We're going to define what that next hop is. In our case, it should point to the other end of 999. That's what I kind of set up here in the demonstration. That interface is gig 101. That's what connects to the router at the local site. Then for interfaces 2 through 8, all I have is 8 interfaces on these virtual switches. So from 2 through 8, I'm just saying, hey, put them in access VLAN 200, voice VLAN 300, and that's about it. So nothing fancy. And this, obviously, you would tweak this to your needs. So if you have a 48 port switch and you want to make the first couple ports this VLAN, the next consecutive ports another VLAN, you would do that in your template. This is just an example of what you can do. All right, so now we go back to profiles. So that was the CLI template. If we look at network profiles, this is where we would define a profile. Again, I stuck to my nomenclature here as custom and then standard Cisco branch profile. We can see that it's a switching template and it's assigned to 3 sites. So the 3 sites, if we expand, I'm not going to go through all 3, but just so you can see, we can see that I've got it attached to London, New York, or San Jose, excuse me, and then New York, all right, is going to have it as well. So I'm reusing the CLI template that's attached to this profile over 3 different locations or sites within Catalyst Center. Now, let's go back to the switches and see what they're doing. So we can see that it has grabbed an IP address on VLAN 1, which is awesome. All right, so VLAN 1 grabbed a 10.17 respectively for San Jose, and then in New York it grabbed a 10.2. If we go back to the topology, we can see that I had carved out 10.1 and 10.2 respectively, so that's perfect. Those DHCP pool, that DHCP pool was defined within the network, and again, the helper address is what's actively getting that address to the device. So let's go back to Catalyst Center, and we're going to go back to plug and play. And let's go ahead and let's claim San Jose. So it's got the name. It's going to tell us, okay, do you want to assign this to a site? In my case, I want to assign it to a site, because what's going to happen is it's going to attach that network profile to that site, right? So I'm going to attach it to floor 1 in my example. So it's now attached. Say next. So you can see here by doing that, now it's attached to the standard Cisco branch switching template, right? Because I assigned that to the site. So let's go ahead and hit next. We select the standard Cisco branch, sorry. Now for host, here's where we input the variables, right? So these were the variables we looked at in the CLI template. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill these out really quickly. So we're doing San Jose. Which was 10.1. Yep, so 10.1. 10.1, 0, 1, 10.1, 1, 1, 10.1, 2, 1, 10.1, 3, 1, and then the next hop should be 10.1, 0, 2, which was the other end of 999. Okay, that's just a /30. So let's hit next. So you can see this went green because we filled out all the variables that it was prompting us to fill out. At this point, we can do a preview. So let's just check it out together. We can see it does the SNMP, SSH stuff. And then for the template CLI review, we can see it's now grabbing everything we looked at together in the template, but now it's filling out the variables, right? So now it substituted the variables with the respective IP addresses that I entered in the previous screen. So that all looks good. Let's X out of there and let's go ahead and hit claim. Do we want to claim? Yes. Now, while that one's claiming, let's go ahead and do New York. Okay, so I attach it to the 9th floor of New York City, or 1 Penn Plaza. It attached it to the Cisco standard branch. That looks good. And now for New York, that was 10.2, I believe, right? Yep, 10.2. So 10.2.0.1, 10.2.1.1, 10.2.2.1, 10.2.3.1, and then 10.2.0.2 is the next hop. Let's go ahead and hit next. Okay, we don't need to preview, we just did that. So let's hit claim. Yes. Now we can see from the state, right, when it's planned, it says the device has been claimed but has not yet contacted the server. So what'll happen here shortly is we should see that it starts to execute the workflow. So nothing's really happened here yet, which is fine. So while that's happening, let's go back to the topology and let's turn on our virtual PC emulators. So we're going to start both of these PCs, and you can see based on the what I did here was I just put an X there. They're actually part of VLAN 200 based on our template that we're pushing, and I will essentially make them DHCP. So we should see the DORA process come through, and it should grab an address on VLAN 200 if all this works properly. And then what we should be able to do ultimately is ping from San Jose to New York and vice versa, and potentially ping the internet through RTP. That's the end goal here. So let's go back to Catalyst Center. So we can see San Jose is now executing the workflow, which is perfect. All right. So if we come back to that switch, we should start to see some action, which we do, right? So we can see that it's being programmed by Zero Touch, all right? It's logging in with the username and password. We can see that we've got some VLAN interfaces that have now been defined, and they should slowly start to come up, all right? Which is what we would expect, right? So now we can see those VLAN interfaces are now coming up, which is awesome. And while that's happening, we can actually take a look. So if we show IP interface brief, now we have a bunch of VLAN interfaces that, remember, this switch was, we wrote erase this switch when we started and it reloaded. So it's being configured right before our eyes by Catalyst Center. And not to mention, we're doing 2 at a time. So if I'm the network admin or engineer and I'm in charge of these sites, I'm literally activating 2 branch sites or doing a refresh in 2 different locations at the same time while recording and talking to YouTube. So it's very powerful. It's easy. It's not complicated whatsoever. And it's going to, again, maximize your efficiency, minimize your config drift or human error aspect of things, right? It's a powerful way to manage your network. So it's still executing. We'll give this a little bit of time, and it should succeed. And once it succeeds, we'll be able to do some basic tests. This will auto refresh every 30 seconds. I'm just being a little impatient, just trying to force it through a little faster. Now, once this workflow completes, what we should see is 2 green check marks saying that the site has been provisioned or the device has been provisioned. We should see the provision 0 go to 2, and it should actually move these devices into our inventory, which if we come over to inventory, right now we only see the routers in the inventory. Okay, what I would expect is when that workflow completes, we should see 2 switches pop into the inventory, and then we'll just have to adjust their IP address accordingly. So we can either stay here and refresh, right, and we should see them pop in, which we can see that one of them is starting to come in as we speak. Okay, the other one hasn't quite finished. So if we go back to plug and play, so we can see that San Jose has now completed, which is awesome. And New York should follow suit here momentarily. So let's go back to inventory. So we can see that it's reachable. It's still doing the sync via SNMP. Now, this IP address, right, we're going to, you could technically, I guess you could leave it, right? Doesn't really matter. Or you can change it to be the VLAN 999 that we hard coded. I guess it's really up to you as the owner of the network. it doesn't really matter. The template that I kind of used, it'll operate either way. It just depends on which interface you want to use for your network monitoring, management, that type of thing, right? So just to elaborate. So it got added on VLAN 1 into Catalyst Center, right? I had said, in the beginning of this video, 999 would be for like the underlay. So maybe you want to update Catalyst Center to reflect this IP as opposed to this IP. Again, totally up to you as the administrator of the network. But you can see that our inventory is now populated, and we can see that the switches that we just provisioned are now in there. They were moved from plug and play into inventory automatically. And then we can start to double click in here and start to see, that telemetry data as it slowly populates into Catalyst Center. Let's do some verification though. So let's go back to the topology, right? So San Jose, we turned on this PC that hangs off port 4 of the switch. So if we go to that PC and we say IP DCP, we can see the DORA process right before our eyes. So it did a discover. When we see the offer, the request, and the acknowledgement, and it actually came back and it grabbed an IP address of 10.1.2.100/24 with a gateway of 10.1.2.1, which is the SVI on San Jose switch, right? (10.1.2.1) is VLAN 200. That's the gateway that it grabbed. And if we look at show interface status, port 4 should be where that device is hanging off of. And we can see that it is, in fact, attached. There's its MAC address, and life should be good. Now let's just go over to this PC in New York City. Let's do IP DCP. So we can see the DORA process has completed. It grabbed an IP address of 10.2.2.100. All right. Now what we should be able to do is from San Jose, ping 10.2.2.100. We are now able to ping from San Jose to New York City, which is awesome. If we trace, we can see that we went to our default gateway. We then went to VLAN 999. We then rode the WAN over to New York. We reached New York's 10.2.0.1 gateway, and ultimately we reached that virtual PC that sits out in New York. So I should also be able to ping the internet, which I can. This actually leaves the lab environment where I'm at and uses my local internet, which I won't do a trace route just for that reason, but you can see that there is reachability to the internet as well. So what have we demonstrated here? We have demonstrated essentially the power of Catalyst Center and PnP together with a CLI template will allow a network engineer or administrator to be able to quickly and efficiently turn up remote branch sites or do switch refreshes and basically manage your LAN environment as you see fit. Now, we only went into CLI templates. We didn't do anything with like software-defined access. Maybe your company's not quite ready to dip their feet in the water yet as far as SD access goes. That's going to be hopefully a future video I do to kind of demonstrate that functionality as well. But this would be for more of a traditional type LAN environment where you just want your VLANs, VLAN assignments, and essentially remove that human error aspect of things, right? Make your WAN cookie cutter, make sure there's no issues. You want to do your swim, your software management, that type of thing. It can all be managed through Catalyst Center. So hopefully this demonstrates how quickly and efficiently you can use the tools within Cat Center to manage your branch sites. I hope you enjoyed it. I do appreciate your time, and thank you for watching. Take care.